Good morning. Welcome back to the Sunday Conversation. Our guest is Georgia Governor Brian Kemp. Governor Kemp, thank you for joining us.
Good to be on with you, Chuck.
You're in Columbus this week. This is being taped earlier in the week. So what's the purpose of the Columbus trip this week?
Well, hadn't been here in just a little bit, so we thought it'd be a good time to get back down. We did a little political lunch earlier, and then while we were in town, we're doing kind of starting and ending the day with political things. We've got going to Chairman Richard Smith's fundraiser tonight to help him. He's just been a great member of the General Assembly, done some incredible work, and he's been a friend of the First Lady and mine for a long time, a great supporter of ours, and so we want to be helpful to him. And we thought while we had a little time in the afternoon, we'd make the rounds in Columbus. So we've been to Columbus State to see the FinTech Cyber program, which was incredible, and then doing a stop at the Chamber of Commerce, check in with the business community. Just been incredible things going on in this part of the state, and also want to hear from them about what they're seeing.
Economic development is front and center for you right now. Jobs. You have been announcing project after project over the last year. And if you look here in West Georgia, from Bainbridge all the way up to West Point, you've announced 5 projects, over 1,400 new jobs, and by my count, more than $1.4 million in billion dollars in investment.
Yeah, it's incredible. Well, even this week, much less the last year, this week we've had 3 or 4 announcements in all different parts of the state. Very excited about that, and I think what's so important about the Columbus area, I mean, Columbus for years has really helped provide economic opportunity and prosperity for a lot of people in rural parts of our state, especially south of the city, but in southwest Georgia. And we're just so excited that we're not only seeing opportunities in greater Columbus, but also in other parts of southwest Georgia, which, as you know, are some of the poorest counties in the country, counties that have been losing population, and to see projects going in those areas where either somebody in that county or somebody in the county next door can go to have a better paying wage with good benefits for a great company and be able to let their children and their grandchildren stay in that community is just huge for this area, but also for our state.
One of the most recent announcements was right up the road in Harris County, 140 jobs, $72 million with a Kia supplier. So
yeah, so we had that. You know, we had the big Pratt & Whitney announcement when we were at the Paris Air Show, which is a huge project, and I think that site will only continue to grow. That business is growing exponentially, so we're excited about both of those things. I don't remember the last time we announced a project in Harris County. It's good.
And you did last week.
Yeah, incredible.
And that's a big deal. You know, you're talking about Pratt & Whitney, and I want to ask you a little bit about that. You hinted back in June when you announced it at the Paris Air Show, you hinted that there's more to come. There could be more to come with Pratt & Whitney, and you were just kind of alluded to it there. What kind of opportunities exist in the aerospace industry, and particularly jet engine rebuilding, with Pratt here in Columbus?
Well, I think just Pratt & Whitney being part of Raytheon, which is now RTX, I mean, that company's involved in a lot of military defense contracting, obviously the aerospace industry, and a lot of other things. And so there's other things that we're working on I can't talk about, but I'm very optimistic about those kind of things. And then you look in other parts of the state with what we have going on up in Marietta at Lockheed, and then the Raytheon, Pratt & Whitney piece. I mean, Georgia's a state, we have great military bases, and we have a great workforce, and we're very, we're patriots here in the state of Georgia. We support our men and women in uniform, and we also support those companies that are helping arm and allow them to defend themselves. And so I think we have great opportunity in the future.
Does some of that center around Fort Moore and the Columbus area? Can Columbus get a piece of that?
Well, we'll see. I think certainly it'd be something that we would be all in favor for. That's up to the company to decide. We just want to put our best foot forward. I think the thing that, we've been talking about at Columbus State, what we'll talk about at the Chamber, what we'll talk about at the Governor's Workforce Summit that we're going to have in October is we got to keep producing the workforce that these companies need to be able to land these projects. That's the first big part. The second big part is, like I told some business leaders earlier today, is you got to have good sites for these companies to grow on, and you got to have them ready. I mean, speed to the market's everything now. A lot of companies are looking, and they're coming to us saying, hey, we've narrowed our search down to 3 different sites in 3 different states, and you're one of them. So if you don't have a site that's on the market, you're not in the game. And so that's something that I think Columbus in the past had been lacking a little bit, but in the future, or right now and in the future, I think people are cognizant of that, and they're actually getting sites ready, marketing sites right now, and that's the new part of the economic development game.
And we'll see, obviously, how that plays out here. But what about Columbus, and what about the Chattahoochee Valley and West Georgia make this region attractive to businesses?
Well, one of the things that I learned in my travels as Secretary of State, visiting all 159 counties, I went to all of these down here. You remember those visits, meeting with the elections officials and going to the courthouses and the administrative buildings and sitting down with the local media and going to the chambers and the Rotaries and Kiwanis clubs and other things. You just saw that there's a lot of things that we need to work on, especially in Southwest Georgia. But also, being a small business owner for 35 years, both the First Lady and I both, we also saw opportunity in those places because there's good, hardworking people. There's plenty of land. There's people that want growth, that have good business environments. And so that's really what I ran on, was strengthening rural Georgia, making sure that no matter what your zip code, that you could have an opportunity for a good paying job and a good place to raise your family, and a good place that where, your kids wouldn't have to move away to go get a good paying job. They could if they wanted to, but they didn't have to because there was no job available. And so that's really where my focus has been. We've had great partnerships with the members of the General Assembly in focusing on rural Georgia and making sure that we got the workforce, that we're working with the locals to help them do business deals and create sites and have, that speed to the market that I talked about. And we've seen that in West Georgia. I mean, when you really think about really Noonan down to Columbus all the way to Bainbridge, you've seen huge job announcements, things that a decade ago you would only see in like Atlanta. And you've seen those in Cartersville, you've seen them in Noonan, you've seen them in LaGrange with companies like Remington Arms coming down there. You got the Duracell battery plant. You've seen things like Pratt & Whitney here, and then the battery facility in Bainbridge. We announced 1,400 jobs in Waycross the other day. I mean, it's incredible.
Are you proud of that record? Is that what puts you? Is that what you can tout on the national stage? You were in Paris. You went to Davos. Is the economic development record of the state kind of your gold star that you can tout as this is what we're doing right?
Well, it's certainly something that we sell every single day. It's nice to be able to tout it today, but tomorrow when I get up, I got to go back to work and make sure that we stay the best state in the country for business. We're the fastest state in the country for business growth. When you look at new businesses that have started, we've got probably half the counties in the top 20 counties in the country, I believe, are in Georgia, and it's just been incredible what we've been able to do. But it's all what I campaigned on. It's what I promised I would do. It's really what my background is as a small business owner, because I know that it's not just a 1,000 job project or a 4,500 job project like Hyundai or Rivian that really make and break things every day in smaller communities, just like you remember the 10, 12 jobs we announced down in Georgetown and Quitman County. I guarantee you, the leadership in that community, they're just as happy about that as the battery plant that went to Bainbridge. That's hundreds of millions of dollars, and I think it was either 400 or 800 jobs going there.
We're talking with Governor Brian Kemp. After this brief break, we'll be right back. We're here with Governor Brian Kemp, and we've been talking about economic development. I want to switch it to politics a little bit now, Governor. Your profile seems to be rising. You seem to be a little more outspoken about some of the things you're seeing in your party. What are your plans right now? I mean, what are you looking at a national stage, or are you strictly focused on what's happening here?
Well, I can guarantee you I'm focused on the state of Georgia every single day. I'm honored to be serving as governor, and the First Lady and I, if anybody follows us on Twitter, our schedule, they know that we have, just because we're in our second term, we're not, resting on our laurels. We're working hard every day. We have a lot of great opportunities in Georgia. We also have a lot of challenges that we're seeing because of a lot of bad policies out of Washington, D.C., and we're focused on helping our people fight through 40-year high Biden inflation, disaster at the border, an administration that's driven up mortgage rates and fuel prices and everything else, and our citizens are having to deal with that, and we're trying to make sure that they're able to do that. So we're going to stay focused on that. I don't think there's any question that I've had more of a national voice just because of what I've been through and kind of the profile that's been put upon me. I have been a little bit more outspoken, but it's really because I want to win. I want a Republican to be serving in the White House. I don't believe that they can do that unless they win, whoever our nominee is, wins the state of Georgia. I don't see a path to winning the presidency for us if we don't win Georgia. And I don't see a nominee in our party winning if we're focused on the past and talking about, an election that was 3 years ago or things that happened 3 years ago. We need to be focused on the future. We need to be telling people what we're for, what we're going to do to help them fight through 40-year high inflation, what we're going to do to fix the border, what we're going to do about energy prices and making sure that people have good paying jobs and that we drive our mortgage rates down instead of up, and making sure that people are optimistic about our country, and then we got to have a candidate that can win. So that's really what I've been saying to people, is because I want to win. Now, some people have listened to me and others have not.
That is very, very true. One of the things that Georgia's the center of the universe with a lot of the legal activity now, and I know you got to be very careful about what you say about this because you're a potential witness in one of the cases, but Georgia courts have indicted a former president and his associates, and they have indicted a group that has been protesting a law enforcement training center in Decatur County and people in that group. What does that say about the state's RICO laws and the fact that you could literally say two sides of the political coin are both facing RICO charges, and RICO is also something they're using in Muskogee County courts and others to go after criminal street gangs?
Well, I would say this, you're talking about the grand jury, obviously,
Yeah.
in Fulton County. I think the frustration with a lot of people, and certainly myself, is how long that process has taken in regards to the Trump and the alternative electors case. I mean, whether it is or not, it certainly seems like it's political, and I think that frustrates a lot of people. That's not how justice should be. I was very excited to see the indictments come out for the domestic terrorist group that has, assaulted police officers. These same people that did shoot and almost killed a state patrol officer when we were trying to clear the forest. We had even this week 3 people chain themselves to equipment over there, hindering, a private business from doing their work every day. After a government's taken action to move forward with this project, whether you support it or not. I mean, the local government supported this. And so I was glad to see that. Most of these people from out of state, the money's coming from out of state, and we're just not going to put up with that in the state of Georgia.
One of the last questions, but mental health is an issue in the state right now. Also, human trafficking that your wife Marty is dealing very diligently with. What more can be done for the mental health crisis in the state, and what more can be done on the human trafficking side?
Well, nobody's done more in the country than the state of Georgia on human trafficking, led by our great First Lady, Marty Kemp, and the Grace Commission, the members of the General Assembly that have voted for 8 pieces of legislation. But really, there's more work to do. We need to raise awareness. We went to see the screening of The Sound of Freedom up at Trilla Studios this week. It was incredible. I would encourage everybody to watch that movie and ask yourself, what can I do to help raise the awareness to this evil crime, help perpetrators, support organizations that are helping or going after, helping the victims or going after the perpetrators. So we have more work to do there. I think on mental health, we've done a tremendous amount. We got the big bill passed a couple of years ago. We had really a great legislative session following up on that this year. We had a lot of funding in the budget for mental health and the health agencies that are dealing with that in state government. We had a piece of legislation that I certainly was supportive of that passed the House, didn't quite get through the Senate, but we're going to keep working on that this year, and so that will be the next step. And everything that we did a couple of years ago, my executive branch agencies are implementing that as we speak, or it's already been implemented.
I'll throw you a softball on the last question, Governor. You know a thing or two about repeating. What's your advice to Coach Smart and the Bulldogs about repeating?
Well, like I tell everybody in politics, do not get distracted with all these things. Stay focused on what you're going to do for people. I think that's Georgia's biggest challenge this year, is not to get distracted with what's happened in the past. This is a whole new team. You know, everybody's record was the same when the year started. We got one win under our belt, and they just need to grind it away every week, keep everybody healthy, and keep getting better. And I think they will. They got a great team. The schedule's not great this year, so, you know, they won't get tested too much. But we'll see how they do when we get a little later in the fall.
Well, Governor, thank you for carving out some time for us this week. We really appreciate it. You've been watching another Sunday Conversation. Our guest has been Georgia Governor Brian Kemp. Come back again next week. There is no telling who's going to be sitting in that seat.